going to talk about consecutive numbers. Consecutive numbers are numbers that happen in a row. So when we think of consecutive numbers, we can think about the numbers like 1, 2, 3, or maybe 98, 99, 100, and so on. So when we go to solve consecutive numbers, a problem that may say, find two consecutive numbers that sum equals 20. We have to tell what the first one's going to be. So in any case, we're talking about consecutive numbers, our first unknown is always going to be x. So we think about defining variables. So x, what are we using it for? We're using it for our first unknown. And how far away, if we call this one x, is our next one? Well, it's only one away. So our next unknown would be x plus 1. And then we continue, how far away is the next one? Well, that's x plus 2. So this would be our second unknown, our third unknown, and we can continue that pattern for how many ever numbers we need to find. Now, there's a little difference when we have even or odd consecutive numbers. So in this case, even might give you an example of 2, 4, 6. And odd might be 1, 3, 5. We would still call the first ones x because they're unknown if we were looking for some. And how far away would the next one be? In both accounts, it's 2 away from the first one. Well, if we call the first one x, then the second one could be called x plus 2. So the expression for the first one will be x. The second one will be x plus 2. If we continued to the next one, we would have x plus 4. And we would continue on, so forth. So we are looking at two different setups. One is consecutive, and those are the x plus 1, x plus 2, and they're just in a row. And then there's consecutive, even, or odd. So we look for these keywords, even, odd. We know that those setups are going to be x, x plus 2, x plus 4, x plus 6, and so on. So those are the most important things. You need to know this. Write this down in your spiral. Now we're going to talk about how to use these to solve problems, word problems. So let's go to our first example. So this says tell the values of 3 consecutive integers so that the sum is 171. Well, if you remember, sum means addition, is means equals, and we know they have to total 171. So first thing we're going to do is define our variables or create expressions for each unknown number. Well, we have 3. So we have a first one we don't know, a second unknown, and a third unknown. So we always call the first unknown, regardless if it's consecutive or even or odd, x. Well, this is just consecutive. So this is in a row, like 1, 2, 3. So this one's x plus 1 and x plus 2. Now it says so that the sum of these, so we're going to take all 3 of these and make an algebraic equation. So x plus 1 plus x plus 2 equals 171. Now we're going to solve for x. Combine your like terms. I have an x, an x, and an x. So that means I have 3 x's. I have a positive 1 and a positive 2. That means I have a positive 3 equals 171. Now I'm going to get all my variables to one side and my constants to the other. So inverse operation, minus 3, minus 3. We have 171 minus 3, and we have 168 is equal to 3x. Now we divide by our coefficient of 3, and we get x equals 56. So now we're going to plug back into our original problem, our original expressions here, and find out what our answers are. So for the first one, we know our first number is 56. 56 plus 1 is going to give us 57. And then 56 plus 2 is going to give us 58. So now we can see that our answers are 56, 57, 58. We can check ourselves by adding those together and making sure they equal 171. Now here's another problem, but notice we're finding 3 consecutive odd numbers. So the first thing we do is set up our problem. So we have x as our first unknown, x plus 2, because odds are 2 away from each other, and then x plus 4. So this is our first unknown, our second unknown, and our third unknown. So it says whose sum is negative 45. Sum again means adding. So now we do our algebraic equation. X plus 2 plus x plus 4 equals negative 45. Combine like terms. So I have 3 x's and a 4 and a 2, so plus 6 equals a negative 45. Solve for x. So minus 6, minus 6. I have 2 negatives. That means I add them, find the sum, and keep the sign. So negative 51. And then I'm going to have just 3x left on one side. And then I divide by my 3. So I'm going to have x equals negative 17. Now, let's plug them back into our original problem, our expressions. So x will be negative 17. Be careful here with negatives. When I plug in negative 17 here, and this one here, I have negative 17 plus 2, which actually is a negative 15. So the second number will be negative 15. When I plug it into x plus 4, I get negative 17 plus 4, I get a negative 13. Consecutive numbers, when they're negative, remember, are a little bit different because the bigger they get, they're actually further away from 0. Or you think about the bigger number, the negative actually makes them a lot smaller. So think about that when you're doing consecutive numbers with negatives. So you don't have to worry about setting them up with a weird negative. You're just going to make sure when you plug them back in that you plug them in correctly. All right, let's go to our next example. This example you're going to see with a little bit more detail, but we're going to look at it and take it one chunk at a time. We're still finding 3 consecutive even integers, and we're going to set that up first. We'll go back to the rest of the problem in just a minute. So we know we're looking for even, so our first unknown we know we're going to call x, always, regardless if it's even, odd, or not. And then our second one, we're going to call, because it's even, they're 2 away, x plus 2. And our third unknown, we're going to call x plus 3. So you'll see that the very first one, the x, is actually the smallest number. The second number, x plus 2, is the middle number, and then x plus 3 is the biggest. So it says we're finding 3 consecutive even integers such that the sum, we again know that's adding, of the smallest, so which one's the smallest? Well, that's x. This is the smallest. And means add, because we're talking about sum, 3 times the second one. Well, this is the second one. And we're going to do 3 times that is 38 more. So we're talking about something, 38 being added to something, than twice the third. Well, this is the third one. And this is the second one. So now let's break that up and set it up. So we're first going to think about what we're going to do here before we get to the is. This is means equals. So we're going to go to the beginning. The sum of the smallest, well, the smallest is x, and 3 times the second. Well, 3 times x plus 2 is 38 more. So we're adding 38 to something. So plus 38, then twice the third. Well, 2 times the third. So here's our algebraic equation. Now we're going to go ahead and solve it. So we have to use distributive first to simplify each side. So x plus 3x plus 6 equals, now let's distribute here, 2x plus 6 plus 38. Combine like terms on each side. So I have an x and a 3x. So I have 4x plus 6. And here I don't have any x's to combine, so I just have a 2x. And then 6 plus 38 gives me 46. I'm sorry, I made a mistake right here. This is actually should be a x plus 4. I was wondering what was happening there. X plus 2 and x plus 4. So then this changes here. I was wondering what I did in my head versus what I was on my paper. So this is x plus 4, which means this is 2x plus 8. All right, so now we have 46. So now we're going to combine like terms by moving our variables to one side. Doesn't matter what you move first. I'm going to do minus 2x minus 2x. That's your wall down the middle. You have 2x plus 6, and then equals 46. Minus 6 minus 6. You have 2x equals 40. Divide by your 2. Divide by 2. X equals 20. Now, let's plug this back in and figure out what our problems are. So the first unknown would be 20. The second one, 20 plus 2, would be 22. And then the third number would be 24. So these would be our solutions. Okay, so you need to have all parts for the answer. All right, let's go to our next one. This is our last one, 2 consecutive integers. So we're looking for 2 numbers, and they're consecutive. Doesn't say anything about odd or even. So we know we're looking for our first one, and we're looking for a second one. We always call our first one x, and then because they're consecutive, this is x plus 1. So it says we're looking for the 2 such that 3 times the larger, so 3 times the larger is going to be the biggest one. Well, x plus 1 is the biggest one. So 3 times the larger one is, or exceeds, that means it's bigger already itself, twice the smaller by 34. Well, let's think about what the smaller is and twice that. Well, twice the smaller is going to be 2x, and then it exceeds it. It's already bigger by 34. So we have to make the other side be equal. So we have to add 34 over here. Now this is our equation. Go ahead and solve by distributing. You have 3x plus 3 is equal to 2x plus 34. Now combine our like terms. Over your wall, inverse operation, positive 2x, so we're going to do minus 2x on both sides. So we have 1x plus 3 is equal to 34, minus 3 to get the numbers together on both sides. So we have 1x is equal to 31. Well, 1x is 31. We can think about dividing by 1. It's not necessary. We know that x is 31. So now if we plug it back in, we know our first number is 31 and our second number is 32. That is our solution set. You have some practice to work on and a con. So take your time, get started, and you'll do great.